Hope is a lie you tell yourself about the future, so you don't have to face the present. It's waiting for things to get better instead of accepting they won't. It's believing tomorrow will fix what today broke. And Camus saw through it, saw that hope keeps you passive, keeps you expecting, keeps you living in some future that never arrives, while the actual moment, the only moment you have, passes unused. He rejected hope, not because he was pessimistic, because he was honest. Because hope is another way of avoiding the truth that life has no inherent meaning, no ultimate purpose, no salvation coming. And once you stop hoping, once you stop waiting for rescue that isn't coming, you can finally start living. Actually living. In the absurd. Without illusions. That's what Camus chose instead of hope. Revolt. And revolt changes everything. If you're tired of people telling you to keep hoping when hope is just another comfortable lie, subscribe to Raw Existence right now. We don't sell you optimism. We tell you why optimism is avoidance. Like this video if you've ever realized hoping was keeping you from living. Comment below and tell me what you stopped hoping for and started doing instead. Let's talk about living without the lie of hope. Hope tells you that meaning is coming, that purpose will reveal itself, that suffering will make sense eventually, that the struggle is towards something, that there's a point, a reason, a why that will justify the how. And you believe it, because believing is easier than facing that there is no point, no reason, no why. Just the how, just the existing, just the continuing without destination or purpose or meaning. Hope makes that bearable by promising it's temporary. That clarity is coming. That understanding will arrive. That someday, somehow, it'll all make sense. But Camus saw that hope is a postponement, a delay, a way of not dealing with what is by focusing on what might be. You hope things will get better, so you don't have to accept they're exactly what they are. You hope for purpose, so you don't have to live without it. You hope for meaning, so you don't have to create in a meaningless world. You hope for salvation, so you don't have to save yourself. Hope is passive. Hope is waiting. Hope is expecting something external to change what's internal. And while you're hoping, you're not living. You're just waiting. And the worst part is, hope feels good. Feels like you're doing something, feels like you're being positive, being strong, being faithful to some future that's better than now, but you're not doing anything. You're just postponing. Postponing acceptance, postponing action, postponing living. Because if you accepted that nothing's coming to save you, that no meaning will reveal itself, that no purpose exists beyond what you create, you'd have to actually live. Actually create, actually be present with what is instead of what you hope will be. I'm watching the field behind my house right now, and the field doesn't hope to be a forest, doesn't wait for transformation, doesn't expect to become something other than what it is, just exists as field, just is. Just continues being field without hoping field will evolve into something more meaningful or purposeful or better. The field is honest, doesn't need the lie of hope to justify existing, just exists. And existence is enough, not because it's fulfilling, because it's what there is. But you need hope, need to believe tomorrow will be different, need to think suffering is temporary, need to imagine purpose is coming, because without hope, you'd have to face that this is it, this moment, this life, this meaningless existence. And nothing is coming to make it mean something, no revelation, no salvation, no ultimate purpose that justifies the struggle, just more moments, more existence, more continuing without reason. And that truth is so uncomfortable that you'd rather hope than face it. That's what Camus rejected, the comfortable lie, the postponement, the passive waiting for meaning that will never arrive. He saw hope as another form of suicide. Not physical suicide, philosophical suicide, the suicide of accepting easy answers instead of facing hard truths, the suicide of living in imagined futures instead of actual present, the suicide of hoping instead of being. Have you felt it? The way hope keeps you waiting? The way believing things will get better stops you from accepting they won't? The way expecting meaning to reveal itself prevents you from living without it? Do you see how hope is another avoidance? Another way of not facing the absurd? The absurd is the gap between what you want and what is, between your need for meaning and the universe's indifference to that need, between your desire for purpose and the fundamental purposelessness of existence. That gap is the absurd, and facing it requires lucidity, requires seeing clearly, requires acknowledging that the gap exists and will always exist and cannot be closed. And hope closes your eyes. Hope tells you the gap is temporary. That meaning will come. That purpose will reveal itself, that the absurd is a phase you'll grow out of. But it's not. The absurd is permanent, and hope prevents you from seeing that. Camus said the absurd requires three things: the universe's silence, your consciousness asking for meaning, and your awareness of the confrontation between the two. That awareness, that lucidity, that clear seeing of what is, that's essential, and hope destroys it. Hope says the universe will eventually speak. Hope says meaning exists, but you haven't found it yet. Hope says the confrontation is temporary and resolution is coming. And all of that is denial. All of that is avoiding the absurd by pretending it's not permanent. Lucidity means seeing that you want meaning and meaning doesn't exist, that you need purpose and purpose isn't given, that you desire answers and the universe provides none. And living with that seeing, that awareness, that's what the absurd demands. Not hoping it'll change, not expecting future revelation, not waiting for the gap to close, just seeing, just knowing, just being aware that you're a meaning-seeking creature in a meaningless universe, and that tension is permanent. That's lucidity, and hope is the opposite of that. I knew someone who spent their whole life hoping for calling, for purpose, for the moment when life would reveal what it was all about, what they were supposed to do, why they were here, and they waited, hoped, expected, and nothing came. No calling, no revelation, no purpose appearing, and they died still hoping, still waiting, still expecting, never living, never creating, never being present with what was because they were always hoping for what would be. That's what hope does. Keeps you in future tense, keeps you waiting for a meaning that's not coming instead of creating in the meaninglessness that's here. Lucidity is different. Lucidity says this is it. This is what there is. Meaninglessness, purposelessness, absurdity. And you can hope for different. You can wait for revelation. You can expect transformation. Or you can see clearly and live anyway. Live in the absurd. Create despite meaninglessness. Continue without purpose. Not because you hope it'll lead somewhere. Just because you're alive and living is what you do while alive. That's lucidity. That's what the absurd requires. And hope destroys that by making you believe living is preparation for something instead of the actual thing. The field doesn't hope for rain, just exists in drought or deluge, doesn't close its eyes to what is by hoping for what isn't, just remains lucid, aware, present with actual conditions. The field sees clearly, is, continues, without the comfort of hope that conditions will change. Just being field in whatever conditions exist, that's lucidity. That's what Camus saw as necessary, what hope prevents. And maybe that's why people hate the absurd, not because it's painful, because it requires lucidity, requires seeing without hoping, requires facing without expecting, requires being present with what is instead of what might be. And lucidity is uncomfortable, is constant, is demanding. You can't escape into hope, can't postpone into future, can't avoid through expectation, have to just see, just know, just be aware. And awareness without hope feels like being trapped, but it's not trapped. It's just actual, just real. Just what is without the comfortable lie of what might be. Can you be lucid? Can you see the absurd without hoping it'll resolve? Can you face meaninglessness without expecting meaning to appear? Can you live in the gap without believing the gap will close? Or do you need hope? Need to believe salvation is coming? Need to think this is temporary? Need the comfortable lie? Hope is passive. You hope, and then you wait. Wait for things to get better. Wait for meaning to appear. Wait for purpose to reveal itself. Wait for salvation to arrive. And while you're waiting, you're not doing, not creating, not living, just waiting, just hoping, just existing in suspended animation until the thing you're hoping for happens. And it never happens. So you wait forever, and that's your life. Waiting, hoping, not living. Revolt is different. Revolt is active. Revolt says the meaning isn't coming, so I'll create. The purpose isn't given, so I'll act. The salvation isn't arriving, so I'll live, now, here, in this moment, without waiting, without expecting, without hoping for different, just living, actually living, in the absurd, despite the absurd, because of the absurd. Revolt doesn't wait for the universe to make sense. Makes beauty anyway, makes meaning anyway, makes life anyway, not because it'll last. Not because it matters ultimately, just because it's what you can do, what you choose to do, what you do instead of waiting. And that's the difference Camus saw. Hope looks to the future. Revolt acts in the present. Hope expects external salvation. Revolt creates internal meaning. Hope is passive waiting. Revolt is active living. One postpones, one engages, one waits for life to start, one starts living. And Camus chose revolt, chose action over expectation, chose creating over hoping, chose living over waiting. This doesn't mean revolt is optimistic, doesn't mean revolt believes in ultimate success. Doesn't mean revolt thinks meaning will last or matter in the long run. Revolt knows it won't, knows everything created will be destroyed, knows all meaning is temporary, knows nothing lasts. But revolts anyway. Creates anyway, lives anyway. Not because it hopes for permanence, because permanence isn't the point. Living is the point. Creating is the point. The moment is the point, not what it leads to, just what it is. I'm watching a bird build a nest right now, and the bird knows the nest is temporary, knows winter will destroy it, knows nothing lasts, but builds anyway. Not hoping for eternal nest, not expecting permanent shelter, just building. Because building is what birds do. Because the moment requires shelter and the bird provides it. Not for forever, for now. That's revolt. That's action without hope for ultimate success. That's creating despite knowing creation is temporary. That's living without expecting life to mean something beyond living. But you've been taught to hope, taught to wait, taught to expect that if you're patient enough, faithful enough, hopeful enough, meaning will come, purpose will reveal itself, salvation will arrive. And you've wasted years waiting, years hoping, years not living because you were expecting life to start later, expecting meaning to appear eventually, expecting purpose to manifest someday. And it hasn't, and it won't. And you're still waiting, still hoping, still not living. Revolt says stop waiting, start living, stop hoping for meaning, start creating it, stop expecting purpose, start acting, now, here, in this absurd moment, without guarantee of success, without promise of permanence, without hope that it'll matter ultimately, just acting, just creating, just living, because living is revolt, creating is revolt. Acting is revolt. And revolt is what you do when you stop hoping for salvation and start saving yourself. The field doesn't wait for rain to start being field, just is field, in drought, in flood, in whatever condition exists. Doesn't postpone being until conditions improve, just continues, just exists, just is. And that continuation without waiting, that existence without hoping, that's revolt. That's what Camus chose. That's what he saw as the only honest response to the absurd. Not hope, Revolt, not waiting. Living, not expecting, creating. Can you stop hoping? Can you start revolting? Can you act without expecting ultimate success? Can you create without hoping for permanence? Can you live without waiting for meaning to justify living? Or do you need hope? Need to believe it's all leading somewhere? Need to think waiting will be rewarded? Need the promise that patience pays off? Sisyphus pushes a rock up a mountain. The rock rolls down. He pushes it up again, forever. And Camus says we must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because the task will end, not because the rock will eventually stay at the top, not because the struggle will be rewarded, but because Sisyphus stopped hoping for any of that, stopped expecting the rock to stay, stopped waiting for the task to end, stopped hoping for meaning beyond the push. And in that stopping, in that abandonment of hope, he became free. Free to be happy. Free to find satisfaction in the push itself. Free to live in the moment of pushing instead of hoping for the moment when pushing ends. That's the key. Sisyphus is happy because he stopped hoping the absurd would resolve. Stopped expecting salvation. Stopped waiting for the task to mean something beyond itself. And in that stopping, in that clear-eyed acceptance that this is it, this is all there is, this pushing is the life, not the preparation for life, he found happiness. Not because the situation changed, because his relationship to the situation changed. He stopped hoping for different and started living with what is. And that's what most people can't do. Can't stop hoping the rock will stay at the top. Can't accept that it won't. Can't live in the push without hoping for the end of pushing, so they push while hoping, push while waiting, push while expecting, and the hoping, the waiting, the expecting, that makes them miserable. Not the pushing, the hoping that pushing will end. The waiting for the moment when pushing stops. The expecting that eventually the rock will stay. That hope is the suffering, not the absurd task. The hope that the absurd task will become less absurd. But Sisyphus knows better, knows the rock won't stay, knows the task won't end, knows no meaning will emerge from endless pushing. And knowing that, accepting that, living with that, he pushes anyway, not hoping for end, not waiting for resolution, not expecting reward, just pushing. Because pushing is what there is. Because the moment of pushing is actual and hoping for the end of pushing is imaginary. Because living is pushing and hoping is avoiding living by focusing on when pushing will stop. I'm watching grass grow right now. And grass doesn't hope to grow tall enough to stop growing, doesn't wait for the moment when growth is complete, doesn't expect to reach some height that means growth was worthwhile, just grows and gets cut and grows again and gets cut forever. And grass doesn't suffer from this, doesn't hope for permanent height, doesn't wait for the cutting to stop, just grows, because growing is what grass does, because the moment of growing is the life, not the height achieved. That's Sisyphus, that's the grass, that's what Camus saw. That happiness is possible when you stop hoping for end and start living in middle. And you're Sisyphus too. Your rock is your life. Your mountain is your circumstances. Your push is your daily living. And you can hope the rock will eventually stay at the top. Hope that one day you'll be done pushing. Hope that eventually life will make sense and purpose will reveal itself and meaning will justify the struggle. Or you can stop hoping, accept the rock rolls down, accept the pushing never ends, accept that meaning won't come and purpose isn't waiting, and this is it, this pushing, this living, this continuing without resolution. And in that acceptance, in that stopping of hope, you can be happy. Like Sisyphus, happy not because the situation is good, because you stopped hoping for it to be different. That's what Camus meant. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Not hope that Sisyphus will eventually be freed, not expect the gods will relent, not wait for the punishment to end. Imagine him happy, in the punishment, in the endless task, in the absurd repetition. Happy because he stopped hoping for escape and started living in the trap. Happy because he's revolting against the absurd by living fully within it instead of hoping to transcend it. Happy because the struggle itself, the push itself, the continuing itself is enough. Not because it leads anywhere, because it is something. And being is enough when you stop hoping for more. Can you be Sisyphus? Can you stop hoping the rock will stay? Can you accept the pushing never ends? Can you live in the push without waiting for rest? Can you find happiness not in resolution, but in revolt? Or do you need hope? Need to believe the rock will eventually stay? Need to think one day the pushing will end? Need the promise that struggle leads to peace? Hope appeals to something beyond, something higher, something transcendent. Hope says this moment, this life, this existence isn't enough, isn't sufficient, needs something more to justify it, needs heaven, needs afterlife, needs ultimate meaning, needs cosmic purpose, needs something beyond the moment to make the moment worthwhile. And that appeal, that looking beyond, that's what Camus rejected. He said, live without appeal. Live in the moment without needing the moment to lead somewhere. Live in existence without needing existence to mean something beyond existence. Live without transcendence, without appeal to higher meaning, without hope that this will all make sense from some elevated perspective. Living without appeal means accepting that this is it, this moment, this life, this existence, nothing beyond, nothing higher, nothing transcendent, just this. And this is enough. Not because it's fulfilling, not because it's meaningful, not because it's purposeful, just because it's what there is. And being is enough without appeal to something beyond being. Existing is sufficient without hope for something more than existing. And this is hard because you've been taught to appeal, taught to hope for heaven, taught to believe in afterlife, taught to think this life is preparation for real life, taught that suffering here is justified by reward there, taught that meaning exists but in transcendent realm, not earthly one. And letting go of that appeal, letting go of that hope for beyond, letting go of the comfort of thinking this leads somewhere other than death, that's terrifying. Because if this is it, if there's nothing beyond, if meaning doesn't exist in transcendent realm, then you have to create meaning here or live without it. Have to find sufficiency in moment or accept insufficiency is permanent. Have to be in existence without hoping for something more than existence. But that's what Camus demands. No appeal, no transcendence, no beyond. Just here, just now, just this. Live in the absurd without hoping for escape from absurd. Create meaning without believing meaning is cosmically validated. Love without thinking, love is eternally significant. Work without expecting work to matter ultimately. Just live, just be, just continue, in the moment, without the moment needing to lead anywhere or mean anything or be part of something larger, just the moment, as sufficient, as complete, as enough. I'm sitting on my porch right now, and the porch doesn't appeal to anything beyond being porch. Doesn't hope for transcendent porchness, doesn't need porch existence to mean something more than porch, just is porch. Here, now. Wood and nails and weathering. Without appeal to ideal form of porch in some heavenly realm. Without hope that being porch is preparation for being something more than porch, just porch. And that's enough. Porch is sufficient without transcendence, without beyond, without more. Just being what it is. And you can be like that, can live without appeal, can exist in moment without needing moment to lead somewhere, can be here without hoping for there, can create without believing creation is part of eternal plan, can love without thinking love transcends death, can continue without expecting continuation to be cosmically significant. Just live, just be, just continue in the moment, for the moment, as the moment, without appeal to something beyond moment, without hope that moment means more than moment, just moment, as enough, as sufficient, as what there is. This doesn't mean nothing matters. Means things matter here, now, in moment. Not because they matter eternally, because they matter to you, because you choose to make them matter, because in absence of cosmic meaning, personal meaning is what there is, and personal meaning is enough. Doesn't need validation from transcendent realm, doesn't need to last forever, doesn't need to be part of ultimate purpose, just needs to matter to you, now, here, in this absurd moment. That's enough. That's what living without appeal looks like. Making meaning without hoping meaning is eternal. Creating without hoping creation transcends death. Living without hoping life means more than living. Can you live without appeal? Can you exist in moment without hoping for beyond? Can you create meaning without believing in transcendent meaning? Can you accept that this is it, this moment, this life, this absurd existence and nothing more? Or do you need appeal? Need to hope for heaven? Need to believe in something beyond? Need the comfort of thinking this isn't all there is? You create. You make things. Art, work, relationships, meaning. And you hope they'll last. Hope they'll matter. Hope they'll transcend your death. Hope they'll be remembered. Hope they'll mean something beyond the moment of creation. And that hope poisons the creating. Makes creating about future instead of present. Makes creating about lasting instead of being. Makes creating about mattering ultimately instead of mattering now. And Camus says, create without that hope. Create knowing it won't last. Create knowing it won't matter ultimately. Create knowing it'll be forgotten. Create anyway. Not because you hope for permanence, because creating is revolt. Creating is living. Creating is what you do in absurd moment without hoping moment leads to eternal. The art you make will be forgotten. The work you do will be undone. The relationships you build will end. The meaning you create will dissolve. Everything temporary, everything impermanent, everything ultimately meaningless in cosmic sense. And knowing that, seeing that clearly, creating anyway, that's revolt. That's what Camus chose instead of hope. Create without hoping creation lasts. Love without hoping love transcends death. Work without hoping work matters forever. Just create, just love, just work. Now, here, in absurd moment. Without hope for more than moment. Just moment, as enough. And this is freeing. Freeing because you're not creating for posterity, not making art for eternity, not building for permanence, just creating. For now, for the act of creating, for the moment of making. Not because it'll last, because making is what you do while alive, because creating is revolt against absurd, because the act itself, not the lasting of the act, is the point. The creating is the meaning, not what creating produces, not what creating leaves behind, just the creating, as sufficient, as complete, as enough without needing to be eternal. I'm watching a bird sing right now, and the song doesn't last, exists for seconds, then gone. And bird doesn't hope for eternal song. Doesn't expect song to be remembered, doesn't need song to matter beyond the singing, just sings. Because singing is what birds do, because the moment calls for song and bird provides it. And song ending doesn't make song meaningless, makes song actual, makes song honest, makes song what it is, which is temporary sound in temporary moment by temporary creature. And that's enough. Song doesn't need to be eternal to be song. Just needs to be sung. That's creating without hope. That's revolt. But you've been taught to create for legacy, create for remembrance, create for lasting, create for mattering ultimately. And that teaching makes creating anxious, makes you worried about what will last, what will be remembered, what will matter. And the worrying prevents creating, because if creating needs to be eternal to be worthwhile, most creating isn't worthwhile. Most creating is temporary. Most creating will be forgotten. Most creating won't last. So you don't create. Wait for the idea that will last. Wait for the work that will matter. Wait for the creation that will transcend. And while waiting, you don't create, don't make, don't produce. Just hope. Hope that someday you'll create something eternal. And that hope keeps you from creating anything at all. Revolt says, stop hoping for eternal. Start creating temporal. Stop waiting for idea that lasts. Start making things that don't. Stop needing creation to matter ultimately. Start creating what matters now, to you, in moment. Without hope it'll matter tomorrow, just now, just here. Just this creating in this moment is enough without needing to be more than moment. That's what Camus chose. That's what revolt is. Creating despite impermanence. Making despite meaninglessness, producing despite knowing it'll all be forgotten, not because you hope it won't be, because creating is what you do while conscious, and consciousness is temporary. So creating is temporary, and temporary is enough. Can you create without hoping for eternal? Can you make knowing it won't last? Can you produce knowing it'll be forgotten? Can you create meaning knowing meaning is temporary? Or do you need hope? Need to believe your work will outlast you? Need to think your creation will matter ultimately? Need the promise of legacy? Hope lives in future, always in future. Hope says tomorrow will be better, next year will be easier. Eventually things will improve. Someday meaning will come. Later purpose will reveal itself. Future is where hope exists, and while you're hoping about future, you're not present in present. You're here, but thinking there. You're now, but focused on then. You're alive, but waiting to start living when conditions are better. When meaning arrives, when purpose reveals, when hope is fulfilled, and present passes unused, unlived, unappreciated, because you're hoping for different future instead of living actual present, because now isn't good enough, isn't meaningful enough, isn't purposeful enough, needs to be different, needs to be better, needs to become something other than what it is. And that needing, that hoping, that expecting different, that prevents you from being here, actually here, in this moment, without hoping for next moment, without waiting for better moment, just being in this moment, the only moment, the actual moment, the moment that exists instead of the moments you hope will exist. Camus saw this, saw that hope steals present by promising better future, saw that while you're hoping, you're not living. Saw that present is what there is, and hoping for different present is avoiding present that's actual. So he chose present, chose to live in moment without hoping moment would become different moment, chose to be here without waiting for better there, chose to accept what is without expecting what might be. That's revolt, that's living without hope, that's being present fully because you've stopped hoping for different. And present, when you're actually in it, when you're not hoping for it to be different, when you're not waiting for it to improve, when you're just here without wanting here to be there, present is enough. Not because present is fulfilling, because present is what there is, because being here without hoping for, there is being alive, actually alive, in moment that exists instead of moments you wish existed. I'm watching clouds right now. And clouds are here then gone, don't last. Don't hope to last, just are in this moment. And then aren't, and being temporary doesn't make them less, makes them actual, makes them present, makes them what they are, which is passing things in passing moment. And that's enough. Clouds don't need to be permanent to be clouds, just need to be. Now, here, in this moment, without hoping for different moment, just this moment. As sufficient. As complete, as what there is. But you're not satisfied with this moment, want better moment, hope for different moment, expect improved moment. And that wanting, that hoping, that expecting, that takes you out of this moment, puts you in imaginary future moment that doesn't exist. And while you're there, in imagination, in hope, in future, you're not here. Not now, not present. You're somewhere else, some time else. Some life else, and actual life passes. Actual moment goes unused. actual present unlived, because you were hoping for different instead of living with what is. Revolt says be here, fully here, without hoping for different here, without waiting for better here, without expecting improved here, just here, in this absurd moment, without the moment needing to be less absurd, without the moment needing to mean something, without the moment needing to lead somewhere, just the moment, as enough, as sufficient, as what living is. Not preparation for living, not waiting for real life to start, just living, now, here, in this moment that will never come again. That's all there is. That's all there ever is. And hoping for different moment is missing the moment that's actual. Can you be present without hoping for different? Can you live in this moment without waiting for better moment? Can you accept what is without expecting what might be? Can you be here fully without needing here to be there? Or do you need hope? Need to believe better is coming? Need to think this moment is preparation for real moment? Need future to make present bearable? Revolt doesn't expect to win, doesn't hope for resolution, doesn't believe the absurd will become less absurd, knows the universe will stay silent, knows meaning won't suddenly appear, knows purpose isn't coming, and revolts anyway, lives anyway, creates anyway, loves anyway. Not because revolt hopes for success, because revolt is dignity, is refusing to submit to absurd even though absurd is permanent, is continuing to create meaning even though meaning is temporary, is living fully even though life is finite. That's dignity. That's what Camus chose. Dignity without hope. Dignity despite knowing dignity won't change anything. Dignity as revolt itself. And this is different from hope. Hope expects reward, expects that if you're good enough, faithful enough, patient enough, resolution will come, meaning will appear, purpose will reveal itself, absurd will become less absurd. Hope is transactional. Do this, get that. Be patient, receive reward. Suffer now, be redeemed later. Hope is bargaining with universe for better deal, and revolt knows there's no deal, no bargain, no transaction, just the absurd, and revolt anyway, not hoping for reward, not expecting resolution, not believing in eventual redemption, just revolting, just living, just being, in absurd, despite absurd, against absurd, as dignity, as refusal to submit even though submission wouldn't change anything either. Revolt is living fully in absurd world without hoping world will become less absurd, creating meaning in meaningless universe without expecting universe to validate meaning, acting with purpose in purposeless existence without believing purpose is cosmically significant. That's dignity. That's the stance Camus saw as honest. That's what he chose instead of hope, not hope for better. Dignity despite worse, not expectation of resolution, acceptance of permanent tension, not belief in ultimate success, revolt despite inevitable failure, and failure is inevitable. You will die. Your creations will be forgotten. Your meaning will dissolve. Your purpose will be revealed as constructed, not discovered. The absurd will remain absurd, the universe will remain silent, meaning will remain absent, and you can hope that's not true. Hope for afterlife, hope for cosmic significance, hope for ultimate meaning, or you can accept it's true and revolt anyway. Create meaning knowing it's temporary, live with purpose knowing purpose is constructed, love knowing love ends, work knowing work will be undone, exist knowing existence is finite. That's revolt. That's dignity. Living fully while knowing fully that living leads to death and death erases everything. I'm watching the wind blow right now, and wind doesn't hope to be permanent, doesn't expect to last, knows it's temporary movement of temporary air in temporary moment, and blows anyway. Not hoping for eternal wind, not expecting to matter ultimately, just blowing. Because blowing is what wind does, because the moment allows wind and wind exists in moment. Without hoping, moment leads to more moments. Just this moment, this wind, this blowing. As enough without hoping for eternal. That's dignity, that's revolt. That's what wind does and what Camus said humans should do. Exist fully in temporary existence without hoping for eternal existence. Just exist. Fully, temporarily, as dignity, but you want hope, want to believe revolt will succeed, want to think that if you live well enough, create enough, love enough, meaning will eventually justify itself, purpose will reveal itself as real, not constructed. Absurd will become less absurd. And Camus says no, says revolt knowing revolt won't win. Says create knowing creation is temporary, says live knowing life ends, says continue knowing continuation leads nowhere. That's dignity, that's revolt. That's what he chose. Dignity without hope for success, revolt without expectation of victory, living without belief in ultimate redemption. Can you have dignity without hope? Can you revolt without expecting to win? Can you live fully knowing life ends? Can you create meaning knowing meaning is temporary? Can you continue knowing continuation leads nowhere? Or do you need hope? Need to believe revolt will succeed? Need to think living will be redeemed? Need ultimate success to make temporary effort worthwhile? You love someone, and you hope love will last forever. Hope it won't end. Hope death won't separate. Hope the feeling will stay strong. Hope the connection will remain. Hope forever. And that hope taints the love. Makes love about future instead of present. Makes loving about lasting instead of being. Makes the relationship about permanence instead of moment. And Camus says love without hoping for forever. Love knowing it will end. Love knowing death will separate. Love knowing the feeling will fade. Love knowing nothing lasts. Love anyway, not because you hope for exception. Because loving is revolt. Because loving is creating meaning in meaningless universe. Because loving is being present with another in absurd moment. Without hoping moment becomes eternal. Love without hope means being here with this person in this moment without needing moment to last, without requiring relationship to be permanent, without expecting love to transcend death. Just being, just loving, just present with another, now, here, in temporary connection between temporary beings. And temporary is enough, doesn't need to be forever, doesn't need to last beyond death, doesn't need to mean something eternally, just needs to be now, needs to matter to you in moment, needs to be created and experienced and lived without hoping it's more than what it is, which is temporary connection in temporary moment by temporary creatures. And this makes love more honest, more actual, more present, because you're not loving with expectation of forever, not relating with hope of permanence, not connecting with belief in eternal, just loving. Here, now, this person, this moment, this connection, as enough without needing to be eternal, as sufficient without requiring permanence, as meaningful without hoping for ultimate meaning, just meaningful to you, to them, now, in absurd moment, as revolt against absurd, as creating meaning despite meaninglessness, as loving despite knowing love ends. I'm watching two birds together right now, and birds don't hope for forever, don't expect permanent connection, don't need love to transcend death, just together, now, in this moment. And moment ending doesn't make moment meaningless, makes moment actual. Makes moment what it is, which is temporary connection. And birds don't suffer from temporariness, don't hope for eternal togetherness, just together when together, apart when apart, no hope for forever, no expectation of permanence, just being together, now. That's loving without hope. That's what Camus meant. Be with someone without hoping being with lasts forever. Just be, now, together, as enough. But you're taught to hope for forever. taught that love that ends wasn't real love, taught that relationships should last until death, taught that if love ends, it failed. And that teaching makes loving anxious, makes you worried about lasting, makes you focused on permanence instead of presence, makes you hope for forever instead of being here. And the hoping takes you out of loving, takes you out of moment, takes you out of connection, puts you in future where you're hoping connection lasts instead of present where connection is. Revolt says, stop hoping for forever, start loving now. Stop expecting permanence. Start being present. Stop needing love to last. Start living love while it exists. And when it ends, as it will, as everything does, don't see ending as failure. See it as what love is. Temporary connection, temporary meaning, temporary revolt against absurd. Love knowing it ends. Love anyway, not hoping for exception, not expecting to transcend death, not believing this love is different. Just loving. This person, this moment, this connection, as enough without forever, as sufficient without permanence, as meaningful without eternal. Can you love without hoping for forever? Can you connect without expecting permanence? Can you be with someone without needing it to last? Can you create meaning in relationship without hoping meaning transcends death? Or do you need hope? Need to believe love is eternal? Need to think this connection is forever? Need permanence to make temporary worthwhile? You continue. You keep going, not because you hope it'll lead somewhere, not because you expect resolution, not because you believe meaning will eventually appear. You continue because continuing is revolt. Because stopping giving up, surrendering to absurd, that's submission. That's letting absurd win. That's accepting that meaninglessness means you shouldn't create meaning. And Camus says no, says the meaninglessness is exactly why you should create. The purposelessness is exactly why you should act with purpose. The absurdity is exactly why you should revolt. Continue not because continuing leads somewhere, because continuing is the revolt, is the dignity, is the living despite knowing living leads to death. Stopping would be logical, would make sense. If nothing means anything, if no purpose exists, if the universe is indifferent, why continue? Why create? Why love? Why work? Why live? Stopping makes sense. Giving up is rational. Surrendering to absurd is reasonable response to absurd. But Camus says continue anyway. Not because it's logical, because it's human, because humans create meaning, because consciousness rebels against meaninglessness by creating, because living is revolt against absurd, and stopping, even though logical, even though reasonable, even though understandable, that's not revolt. That's submission, and Camus chose revolt. So you continue, you wake up, you work, you create, you love, you live, not because you hope work will matter, not because you expect creation to last, not because you believe love is eternal, not because you think life has ultimate purpose. You continue because continuing is what you do while alive. Because the moment you're in requires continuing and you're in moment, so you continue. Not for future, not for eternal, not for ultimate, just for now, for this moment, for this continuing in this absurd existence, as revolt, as dignity, as refusal to let absurd dictate your actions, even though absurd is permanent. And continuing is hard. Continuing without hope is harder. Continuing knowing nothing means anything, that's hardest. But that's what Camus demands. That's what revolt is. Continue anyway, create anyway, love anyway, live anyway. Not because you hope it'll matter. Because continuing is revolt, and revolt is what you choose instead of submission. Not because revolt wins. Because revolt is dignified, not because revolt changes absurd. Because revolt refuses to let absurd determine your response. You determine, you choose, you revolt, by continuing, by creating, by living, despite, not because of, not hoping for, just despite, just anyway, just continuing as revolt. I'm watching grass continue growing right now, and grass doesn't hope growth leads somewhere, doesn't expect growth to matter ultimately, doesn't believe growth has cosmic significance, just grows. Because growing is what grass does, because the moment allows growth and grass grows in moment. Without hoping, moment is preparation for ultimate moment. Just this moment, this growth, this continuing. And grass doesn't stop because growth doesn't lead anywhere, doesn't give up because growth is meaningless, just continues. As what grass is. As what grass does. That's continuing without hope. That's revolt. That's what Camus chose. But you want purpose for continuing, want reason to keep going, want hope that continuing leads somewhere, want meaning that makes continuing worthwhile. And Camus says continuing is worthwhile without ultimate purpose, without cosmic reason, without hope for destination, just worthwhile as continuing, as revolt, as living, not because living leads to eternal life, because living is what you do while alive, because consciousness continues until it doesn't, because revolt is dignity, because continuing despite meaninglessness is more honest than stopping because of meaninglessness. Just continue, not hoping, just continuing, as revolt, as enough. Can you continue without hoping for destination? Can you keep going without expecting ultimate purpose? Can you live without believing life leads somewhere? Can you revolt without thinking revolt will win? Or do you need hope? Need to believe continuing leads to something? Need to think effort will be redeemed? Need ultimate success to make temporary continuation worthwhile? The field doesn't hope, doesn't expect, doesn't wait for better conditions, just is. In drought or deluge, in sun or shade, in growth or decay, just field, just being field, without hoping to be different field, without expecting conditions to improve, without waiting for rain that makes being field easier, just field, now, here, in whatever condition exists. And that's what Camus saw in nature, the being without hoping, the existing without expecting, the continuing without waiting, and he said, be like that, be like field, exist in conditions without hoping for different conditions, live in absurd without expecting absurd to become less absurd, continue in meaninglessness without waiting for meaning to appear. The field teaches lucidity, teaches acceptance, teaches being what you are in conditions that exist without needing conditions to be different. And lucidity isn't pessimism. Acceptance isn't resignation. Being isn't giving up. They're revolt, they're dignity, they're refusing to let conditions determine your being. Field doesn't stop being field in drought, doesn't give up in bad conditions, doesn't wait for perfect conditions to start being. Just is, always, in all conditions. That's revolt. That's what Camus chose. That's what he meant by living without hope, not hope for better conditions. Being in conditions that exist, not waiting for meaningful. Being in meaningless, not expecting absurd to resolve. Living in absurd that persists. And you can be like field. Can exist without hoping for different existence, can live without waiting for better life, can continue without expecting conditions to improve, can be an absurd without hoping absurd becomes less absurd. Just be, just exist, just continue, in conditions that exist, without conditions needing to be different, without existence needing to be more than existence, without life needing to mean more than living, just being, as field is, as revolt, as dignity, as enough, without hoping for more. But you're not satisfied with conditions, want better, hope for easier, expect improved. And that wanting, that hoping, that expecting that takes you out of being and puts you in waiting, waiting for conditions that don't exist. Hoping for life that isn't actual, expecting meaning that isn't coming, and while waiting, while hoping, while expecting, you're not being, not living, not in conditions that exist, just in imagination of conditions that might exist, and actual conditions pass. Actual life goes unlived, actual moment unused. Because you were hoping for different instead of being with what is. I'm sitting on this porch, watching this field. Same porch, same field, and I'm thinking about how field will be here tomorrow. Not because field hopes for tomorrow, because field doesn't stop being field today, doesn't give up in today's conditions, doesn't wait for tomorrow's better conditions to start being, just is. Today, now, in these conditions, and tomorrow comes or doesn't, and field continues being field. That's continuing without hope. That's being without expectation. That's revolt as Camus meant it, not hoping for better, being in actual, not waiting for different, living with what is. Can you be like field? Can you exist in conditions without hoping for different conditions? Can you live in absurd without expecting absurd to resolve? Can you be in meaninglessness without waiting for meaning? Can you continue without hope that continuation leads somewhere? Or do you need hope? Need to believe conditions will improve? Need to expect meaning will come? Need tomorrow to be better than today, to make today worth living? So what did Camus choose instead of hope? Revolt. But what is revolt? It's lucidity. Seeing the absurd clearly without hoping the absurd will resolve. It's presence, being in moment without expecting moment to lead somewhere. It's action. Creating meaning without believing meaning is cosmic. It's dignity. Continuing without hoping continuation leads to redemption. It's living, actually living in absurd, without illusions, without hopes, without expectations, just living, fully, in moment, creating, loving, being, not because it leads somewhere, because living is revolt, and revolt is what you choose when you stop hoping for salvation and start being present with what is. Revolt isn't optimism, isn't believing things will get better, isn't expecting meaning to appear, isn't hoping for purpose to reveal itself. Revolt knows things won't get better, knows meaning won't appear, knows purpose is constructed, not discovered, knows the absurd is permanent, and chooses to live anyway, chooses to create anyway, chooses to love anyway, chooses to continue anyway, not because revolt hopes for success, because revolt is the only dignified response to absurd, the only honest way to live in meaningless universe. The only way to be human in cosmos that's indifferent to humans. And revolt is freeing. Freeing because you're not waiting anymore, not hoping anymore, not expecting anymore, just being, just living, just creating, in moment, for moment. Without moment needing to be more than moment, without life needing to mean more than living. Without existence needing to lead anywhere or be part of anything or matter ultimately. Just existence, as enough, as sufficient, as what there is, and you in it. Revolting by being, revolting by creating, revolting by loving, revolting by continuing, despite, not because, not hoping, just despite, just anyway, just revolting. That's what Camus chose. That's what he offered instead of hope, not another comfortable lie, not another way to avoid the absurd, not another postponement of facing meaninglessness, just revolt, just lucid, present, active, dignified living in absurd, without hoping absurd becomes less absurd, just being, just creating, just continuing, as revolt, as enough, as what you do while conscious, while alive, while here, and when consciousness ends, when life stops, when here becomes gone, revolt ends too, but doesn't fail. Because revolt wasn't hoping for eternal, was just being temporal, fully, honestly, in moment, as revolt, as dignity, as living without the lie of hope. The field will be here tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow. Not because field and I hope for tomorrow, because field and I continue being today. And today, continuing becomes tomorrow. Not through hope, through being, through continuing, through revolt against absurd. By existing in absurd without hoping, absurd becomes less absurd. Just existing, just being, just continuing, as Field does, as Camus did, as you can do, without hope, with revolt, living, creating, being, in absurd, fully, honestly, without illusions, without expectations, without hope, just living, as revolt, as dignity, as enough. That's what Camus chose. That's what he offers. That's what revolt is, not hope for better, acceptance of actual, not expectation of resolution, living in tension, not waiting for meaning, creating in meaninglessness, not postponing to future, being in present, just living, just being, just revolting, by continuing, by creating, by loving. Despite knowing continuation ends, creation dissolves, love finishes. Just anyway. Just despite. Just revolting. That's what he chose. That's what he offers. That's what's available when you stop hoping and start living. So that's why Camus rejected hope. Because hope is passive waiting. Hope is expecting external salvation. Hope is living in imagined future instead of actual present. Hope is comfortable lie about meaning appearing eventually, and Camus chose honesty, chose revolt, chose lucid, present, active, dignified living in absurd without hoping absurd becomes less absurd, chose creating meaning without believing meaning is eternal, chose loving without hoping for forever, chose continuing without expecting continuation to lead somewhere, chose living, actually living, in moment, without hope, with revolt. If this resonated, if you've realized hope was keeping you waiting instead of living, subscribe to Raw Existence. We don't sell hope. We tell you why hope is another lie, why revolt is the honest response, why living without hope is more dignified than hoping without living. Like this video, if you've stopped hoping for meaning and started creating it, if you've stopped waiting for purpose and started acting with purpose, you construct. If you've stopped expecting salvation and started being present with what is. If you've chosen revolt over hope, and comment below. Tell me what you stopped hoping for. Tell me what you started doing instead of waiting. Tell me if you can live without hope, or if hope is still necessary. Tell me if revolt makes sense, or if you need the comfortable lie. I read every comment. We're all living in absurd, all needing to choose between hoping for less absurd and revolting in actual absurd, all deciding between passive waiting and active living. And being honest about that choice is the first step to choosing honestly. Thanks for this time with me, for sitting with uncomfortable truth that hope is postponement, that waiting for salvation is avoiding living, that expecting meaning to appear is refusing to create meaning, that hope is another comfortable lie, and revolt is uncomfortable truth, that living without hope is possible, is dignified, is honest, is revolt. The field is still out there, still being field without hoping for better field, still existing in conditions without waiting for different conditions, still continuing without expecting continuation to lead somewhere, just being, just field, just continuing, as revolt, as dignity, as what existing is when you stop hoping and start being. And you can be like that, can exist without hoping for different existence, can live without waiting for better life, can create without expecting creation to last, can love without hoping for forever, can continue without believing continuation leads somewhere, just live, just be, just create, just love, just continue, in absurd, without hope, with revolt. Not because revolt hopes for success, because revolt is dignity, because living without hope is more honest than hoping without living, because being present in meaningless moment is more actual than hoping for meaningful future, because revolt is what you choose when you stop hoping for salvation and start being present with what is. Stop hoping, start revolting, stop waiting, start living, stop expecting, start being in moment, in absurd, in meaninglessness, without hope that it'll become less absurd, less meaningless, more purposeful, just in it, fully. Honestly, creating meaning without hoping meaning is eternal. Loving without hoping love is forever. Continuing without hoping continuation leads somewhere. Just living, as revolt, as dignity, as enough without hoping for more, as what Camus chose, as what you can choose, as what living without hope looks like. Revolt, present, active, dignified, honest, living, actually living, without the lie of hope, with the truth of revolt. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Not because Sisyphus hopes the rock will stay at the top, because Sisyphus stopped hoping, and in stopping became free. Free to be happy, free to live in the push, free to revolt by continuing. That's what Camus offers, that's what he chose, that's what's available. When you stop hoping and start revolting, when you stop waiting and start living, when you stop expecting salvation and start being present, without hope, with revolt. Living, actually living, in absurd, as enough, as dignity, as revolt.